What if nothing could hurt you anymore? Not their rejection, not the betrayal, not the silence that echoes louder than words. Imagine moving through life like a ghost through walls, untouchable, immune, untouched by the chaos of other people's moods and decisions. No more anxiety before speaking your mind. No more overthinking every interaction. No more nights wondering what you did wrong. We all fantasize about that version of ourselves. The one who feels nothing, who never flinches, who's always in control. It sounds like peace. But in reality, it's a prison. Because the more you chase this dream of being untouchable, the more fragile you become. You build walls. You tighten your grip. You try to stop feeling. And in doing so, you become a hostage, not to others, but to yourself. You were told that strength means being unaffected. But Carl Jung understood something very different. He saw that the things we try hardest to bury are the very things that end up controlling us. What you avoid doesn't disappear. It waits. And that's why you're still hurting. Not because you're weak, but because you're still pretending not to be. If you've ever found yourself asking, "Why does this hurt so much?" Keep watching. You're about to see why. Most people walk through life carrying an invisible burden. They smile, they function, they play their part. But underneath it all, something aches. Quietly, constantly. It's not always dramatic. It doesn't scream. But it's there, in the hesitation before opening up, in the need to explain yourself even when you shouldn't have to, in the sudden wave of shame that hits when someone looks at you the wrong way. It's the weight of being chronically misunderstood, of always trying to be good enough, kind enough, composed enough. You've built a version of yourself that looks strong, but it's exhausting. Because strength, for you, has meant suppression, performing in vulnerability while quietly breaking. And maybe you've told yourself, if I just care a little less, if I expect nothing, if I keep my distance, maybe then it won't hurt anymore. But that's not protection. That's numbness. And numbness isn't peace. It's emotional paralysis. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." And this is how most people live, trying to escape the pain instead of understanding it. But here's the truth no one tells you. Pain doesn't come from what happens to you. Pain comes from what it hits inside of you. You're not hurting because of what they said. You're hurting because, on some level, it confirmed what you already feared was true. Until now, you've tried to outrun it. You've tried to be stronger, smarter, more agreeable, more controlled. Anything to avoid being hurt. But nothing changes. Because you're fighting the wrong enemy. The problem isn't the world. It's the way your past still echoes through every moment of your present. And once you see that, once you stop trying to win a battle that was never yours, something shifts. Not all at once, but enough to begin. There's something devastatingly misleading about the way we talk about pain. We say, "They hurt me," as if the source of suffering lives entirely in the outside world, in someone else's words, actions, betrayals. But this isn't the full picture. It's not even close. Because what really hurts isn't what happened. It's what that moment touched inside of you. The pain was already there, dormant, waiting, and the world simply found it. Carl Jung understood this with piercing clarity. He believed that what wounds us is not external reality, but the parts of ourselves we have not yet made conscious. Someone's silence wounds you because it echoes the abandonment you never processed. A rejection shatters you because it touches the part of you that still believes you're unworthy of love. A single word, sharp, careless, unintended, spirals you into shame because it hits the exact place your self-image is still fractured. It's not about what they did. It's about where it landed. And if it landed in a place you've never dared to explore, it explodes. This is the trap of emotional reactivity. You think you're responding to the world, but you're actually responding to the parts of yourself you've hidden away. Every time you feel disproportionately triggered, it's not because something is wrong with you. It's because something within you is still waiting to be understood. And yet, instead of turning inward, we turn outward. We blame. We build armor. We try to anticipate and control everything around us, thinking that if we're perfect enough, agreeable enough, kind enough, quiet enough, the world will finally stop hurting us. But this is the most painful illusion of all, because the moment you try to control the world as a way of avoiding pain, you become trapped in a cycle of tension and fear. You live in constant surveillance, scanning for threats, rehearsing every word, trying to stay one step ahead of disappointment. And even then, it still hurts. Maybe even more. Why? Because pain doesn't come from the world. It comes from the echo. And until you turn and face what's echoing inside you, every interaction becomes a potential wound. There's a reason your pain hasn't gone away. It's not because you're broken. It's because you haven't listened to it. Carl Jung believed that suffering wasn't a failure. It was a message. Not from the world, but from the self. And when you ignore it, repress it, distract yourself from it, it doesn't disappear. It grows teeth. It changes form. It becomes anxiety, resentment, self-sabotage, emotional numbness. It shows up in the exact moments when you thought you were finally safe, when things are going well, when the relationship is stable, when nothing obvious is wrong. That's when it comes. Not as chaos, but as a quiet collapse from within. Jung called this force the unconscious. Not a passive void, but an active presence inside you. A system of old wounds, forgotten memories, silenced needs, and an unintegrated fears. And here's the uncomfortable truth. As long as you don't face it, it will rule you. Until you make the unconscious conscious, Jung said, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. That means your triggers, your emotional breakdowns, your toxic patterns, they aren't accidents. They are calls. They are invitations to a confrontation you've spent your whole life avoiding. Most people never answer. They numb themselves. They stay busy. They say, I'm just not emotional, or that's just how I am. But deep down, they're at war with themselves. One part wanting peace, another part terrified of what peace would actually require. Because healing demands something terrifying, self-honesty. It asks you to sit in the discomfort, to meet the parts of you that have been crying out in silence, the ones you've hidden, denied, judged, or buried. And here's where Jung's most powerful insight comes in. Healing doesn't come from strength. It comes from integration. You don't become untouchable by numbing yourself to pain. You become untouchable by no longer being afraid of it. The things you hide in the dark only have power because you've left them there. But when you shine a light on them, when you say, "Yes, this is part of me," something shifts. The shame dissolves. The fear loses its grip, and what once ruled you becomes part of your strength. To suffer consciously, to truly feel without collapsing, is the most courageous act there is. And it's the only path toward freedom that isn't built on illusion. There's a kind of strength that looks like silence, not the silence of repression, but the silence of understanding. Because once you stop running from yourself, the world loses its power to shake you. Carl Jung called this process individuation, becoming who you truly are by confronting and integrating all the parts of yourself you once disowned. Not just the good parts, not just the socially acceptable traits, but the shadow, the fear, the insecurity, the jealousy, the pain. You don't become untouchable by building walls. You become untouchable when there's nothing left inside you to hide from. Nothing left for others to activate without your awareness. Nothing that you haven't already looked at and said, "Yes, I know you, and you don't control me anymore." This is what most people misunderstand. They think emotional strength is about caring less, feeling less, being less vulnerable. But real strength isn't coldness. It's clarity. When someone criticizes you and you feel the sting, you don't react. You notice, you observe, you breathe. And in that space, you realize the pain isn't a threat. It's information. You are no longer trapped in the loop of reacting to everything that touches your wound. Because you've begun the real work, the work of becoming whole. And here's the paradox. The more you accept your pain, the less it controls you. The more you integrate your past, the less you fear your future. And the moment you stop protecting yourself from life is the moment life stops being your enemy. There's a depth inside you that no one can reach. Not because it's hidden, but because it's yours. Most people live on the surface. They're tossed around by every wave, a comment, a glance, a moment of silence. Every encounter becomes a potential wound. Every day, a battle to maintain control. And they wonder why they feel exhausted, fragile, alone. But you've begun to dive. And in the deep, there is no need for armor. Because down there in the stillness of self-awareness, nothing hits without your permission. You don't flinch, not because you're numb, but because you understand. Carl Jung called this consciousness, the only true protection we ever have. It's not about becoming invincible. It's about knowing exactly where you stand when life tries to move you. It's about no longer mistaking your wounds for your identity, no longer needing others to validate your worth, no longer collapsing just because something hurts. You may still feel pain, but it doesn't own you. You may still bleed, but you do not break. Because your strength is no longer a mask, it's a center. A quiet presence that nothing from the outside can shatter. And this is what changes everything. You stop chasing peace and become it. You stop resisting life and begin to live it fully. honestly, deeply. So if you've made it here, to this point in the journey, you're ready. Ready to stop pretending. Ready to stop hiding. Ready to stop waiting for the world to stop hurting you. And to start knowing yourself so completely, so courageously, that nothing can touch you the way it used to. You won't be hurt anymore. Not because the world is softer, but because you are stronger, quieter, whole. If this resonated with you, like, share, and subscribe to The Existential Edge for more videos like this.